So, leaving personalities out of it, what do you think motivates people to provide reading material that's not age appropriate?
What motivates people to provide material that is not age appropriate? I think, oh man, I think that has to just be something maybe they don't even realize they're being influenced by faulty ideas.
Hey, welcome to Storypower TV. I am your host, Loren Norris, and I am so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to have a great conversation about what it means to be a Christian in the marketplace and busy about the business of the kingdom and what that means. What does it mean as a parent? What does it mean as a citizen? What does it mean as someone who's just getting involved in what's going on in the world around you? And for a lot of people, that's a challenge. They say things like, well, religion and politics should be separate. Okay, show me one political system that has no religion in it. Go ahead. Oh, wait. Show me one religious system that has no politics in it. From the smallest T90 little churches and home groups up to the biggest mega churches. They are abundant in politics, I promise you. And if you understand what I mean by that, then you understand that your role as a well-behaved, well-informed, well-educated citizen of either the kingdom or the community, you got a role in this. You got something you should be doing. And it may not be comfortable, and it may cause you to do things that are not in your own personal best interest. And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Storypower TV. And I want you to help me welcome to the studio a mother of 9, a citizen advocate, a patriot, and some people's book a loudmouth, but someone who's devoted to and dedicated to living out what she says she believes. Help me welcome Monica Brown.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Appreciate you being here. Now, you've made a conscious decision to involve yourself in community politics in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And as a mother of 9, that is a time-consuming process,
Right.
both being a mother of 9 and being involved in what's going on around you. And whether we agree on everything or we don't is not as relevant as why do you do what you do. But before that, everybody on Storypower TV has to answer one question.
Okay.
Who is Jesus to you?
Okay, Jesus is someone I committed my life to back when I was 15 years old. Before that, I had gone to the altar many times, regretting my weakness and seemed like I was always needing more. And then I just basically drew a line in the sand at 15 and said, I'm devoting the rest of my life to you and I'm not going to play games. And I did the same thing with relationships, like with young men. I'm like, I'm not going to play games. And shortly thereafter, I met my husband. But Jesus, to me, he's revealed in the Word. So I like to know what the Word says so I don't dream up things about him that aren't true. So I like to really be well versed in that. And he came and he died and he left the Holy Spirit so that I could be empowered and comforted. So 2 things, he would comfort me, but he would also lead me. And I really believe that's what he's done, and he's still doing that. And I want to use the word convicting me, but that is I do have conviction. And so when I see something that is, especially something that crosses a moral line or involves children, it definitely gets my attention. And then I have to decide, is this a place for me to say something, or what is my step? So Jesus is everything to me, and I want to be someone who gets that well done when I get there. I want to serve him all the days of my life, and I also want my children to know him very well by knowing his word, starting there.
So the follow-on question that is always the same as well, and that is, why should I care?
Why should you care? Well, I liken this to a story I was told one time about a man who was trying to prevent people from a car accident that was up the road. Sometimes we come into your life and you don't care. You don't know. You have no idea what's around the corner. And I truly do believe we have a Creator and we have Jesus Christ as His Son, and that He does say, whosoever will, and He wants every one of us to serve Him if we are willing and if we will say yes. And it will avert a lot of things for us if we listen. So I think you should care, because I think there's more than we realize. And if we pay attention, we'll notice there really is more out there, and there is a good and evil battle going on. And so choosing the side of good is a great decision. And the worst thing is, if you were wrong, what a good life. I believe the Christian life is the best life you could possibly live with the best values. So, that's how I feel about it.
Okay. So you talk about warning people of an oncoming car accident. I know this morning I made a trip to the house and back between meetings, and I passed a black Chevy pickup coming at me, flashing his headlights. Flashing his headlights. And when I came around the corner, there was a wrecker pulling a car out of the ditch, and police cars everywhere, and traffic stopped both ways.
Right.
And I thought, if I didn't notice that, would I have slowed down on that blind curve, or would I have been part of that accident on that blind curve?
And you might have been, possibly, you may not have today, but what if you're irritated that this person tried to get your attention, or they swerve at you, or they do something dramatic that gets your attention, but then once you realize it saved you from what was up the road, then your heart's full of gratitude. So that's kind of, I think, what happens sometimes in the Christian walk, is that people sometimes feel that way. They don't like what you're saying, they don't like what you're doing, and then if they understand the other side of the story, often they realize with gratitude that what has been prevented for them, and then what has been gifted to them.
Yeah.
So
you're a mother of 9. How old?
How old am
Children.
I? Okay.
How old are your children?
Okay.
I knew better than to ask a woman how old is she.
Actually, it doesn't matter. I always tell my kids, hey, I'm halfway there. I'm halfway to my maker, and I'm very happy about that. And so 31, I believe, is the oldest, maybe 32 at this point, and then it goes down to 24. And then it goes down to 3 adopted that are 20, 19, and 19. And so then it goes down to 17 and 15 and then 12 and 7. So my youngest is 7.
And how many of those are natural born to you?
6 natural born and 3 adopted.
And how did you come about the 3 that are adopted?
So way back, I had some health issues when I was in my teens, and my doctor said, you may have a hard time having babies. And when I went to my counselor at school and they helped me determine my career path, we came down to several things, but one of them was to become a social worker. So I studied that, and I was deciding between like pediatrician or counselor kind of type person. And I thought, I really don't want to fix bones. I want to help hearts and minds. Back then, that was what I wanted. And nutrition was another one that was, dietitian was on the list too. But anyway, I pursued adoption. I became a master's degree social worker, and I began to place special needs children for adoption, and always thought that one day I might adopt as well. So before my husband and I ever married, we talked about the potential of adopting. And when I was very small, 3rd grade, it's written down that I desire to have a big family. And people laughed at me, and it had to be God that put that in my heart, because not everybody wants that. And then when you get it, you have to live it.
A few decades ago, that was a really weird, wish to have a
Right.
large family.
Even now, there's people who don't wish for the life I have, but I feel I have a very rich, full life, and I wouldn't change it. Even though there's been parts that have been extremely hard, so I wouldn't change it. I'm glad.
And so, how many of your kids are still living the life that you modeled for them?
So out of 9, my oldest is not, and I'm praying for him constantly. Love him very much, and he's very opposed to myself and my husband and our values as a family right now. But the story's not over. And the second son is honoring to us and our values that we raised him in. The next one is all the rest actually are still on track for what you might call a God, country, red, white, and blue, conservative value direction. Now their life will tell, and they will be able to choose, right? Some are still in the house, so there's a few still that live at home. But one of my sons is 20, and he just gave me a recommendation or an endorsement last night that was so precious of who he sees me as, and his values are lining right up, which I appreciate. It's so good. It's so good.
It's refreshing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So, I've only known you, I've only been in Granbury for a couple of years, so less than that.
Right.
And never had any super deep conversations. So today's kind of our chance to dive into that and figure out who you are. But part of the reason that we're having this conversation is because we've crossed paths in places where people rise up and say, okay, politically, I see things that are going on, and I generally I'm not a on the front line political person. I don't think that's my calling at this point.
Right.
If God changes that, then I'm fine with that. But my primary role is helping people to clearly see the vision and communicate the vision that they've been assigned to. And so I've worked with a lot of politicians all over the map and helped people to define their message and identify the stories that they've lived through that help other people to see those messages more clearly.
Okay.
And so as we've crossed paths, it's been in that arena.
Right.
Watching other people in the political sphere around you and seeing the core values that you express and the things that you say out loud. And so when you said you were running for office, I thought, well, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about, because it's not every day that someone goes from being a mother of 9 to running for office.
Right.
For a lot of people being involved in politics, recently had Terry Hall on the show. Terry's not necessarily involved in politics, but what she does definitely impacts the political realm. And so that's an interesting aspect. And she's a homeschool mom as well, if I remember right. So there's a lot of similarities in that aspect, but she's not choosing to be on the forefront of politics in the way that you're choosing to do that.
Right.
So what motivates you to step out there, especially when you see all of the things that go on in politics? There's a lot of filthiness in politics, a lot of dirt, a lot of vitriol and hatred.
Yes, far more than I recognized or realized. I've watched it happen to people. I've seen people lose jobs, just a lot of things like that. But I've always been interested in politics, in anything that supports our Constitution, that goes back to early American history, supporting freedom, the First Amendment rights. All that's been very important to me. I probably would have been involved sooner, except that I did have so many children and small ones too, also running a business. So I did vote. And when I came to Granbury, I came to take over a homeschool co-op, and it was like volunteer work on steroids, is what I tell people, like nothing I had ever done before. I always volunteered, but this one was like a daily, regular thing, and very, very enriching, encouraging, and what a wonderful experience. I loved it. But in that process, I ended up getting involved with the school district here, and we were involved in a robotic tournament. We were offering for independent school districts to come to our gymnasium and perform and compete, and we did that many times. And then we in turn began to go to independent school districts in different places in the state, including Granbury, to have our students compete too. And so it was very exciting for us and very fun, but part of my role was to be a volunteer. When my students showed up to compete, I would volunteer at each tournament. So in Granbury, they kept asking me to, since I'm a foodie and I like healthy food and everything, they said, will you make breakfast, lunch, and snack for everybody? I said, sure, I'll do that. That'll be my contribution. And so they put me in the library every single time, which I thought was odd. It just always struck me as odd. But anyway, that brought me into a thing that was going on that I had no idea of, because I really wasn't in that world. But there had been released from our state legislature a large list of books, and each administrator of schools was asked to get these books vetted. So next thing I know, I've been asked by a trustee, would you be on the committee? And the first thing I said to my husband was like, I don't think so. I have so much going on. I don't need to do this. He goes, oh, I think you should. So it kind of started with my husband, because he's really laid back. He doesn't tell me what to do a lot, but when he does, it gets my attention. So I was like, well, okay, I'll say yes. But I thought she was going to nominate me and would immediately go, not this person. I thought they would vote or something, but they didn't. And then they chose to put 100 books back out of 133 that were very clearly, most of them explicit books, not age appropriate, certainly not academic books, back in the library. And I missed the first meeting because I already had a meeting scheduled, and then I said I'd be at the next one, and I didn't actually know where it was in time to even get there with the communication that we had going. So by the time I got there, they had placed my name in the paper after their second meeting saying that we had put 100 books back. I'm like, well, how do you do that? These books are 300 to 600 page books. How did you actually do that? And as it turns out, it was a very defining moment for me, very sad, because we had the lead of our newspaper here, who is also an attorney. We had school officials there that had been given awards. We had teachers who had been given awards for their teaching, which I'm sure they did do a good job teaching, but they were on the committee, and they would just vote and smile and put each book back. So when I got to the third meeting, that's when I attended. It just became a big dilemma for me. I stood up, I sat down, I stood up, I sat down. I was like, I have to go. I don't even think I can do this. And sitting right next to me was Karen Lowry, who I had never met before. I had no idea that she had the same thoughts I was having. Eventually, she became a school board trustee here in Granbury. She ran for office over that situation. But before I was even involved, there was a man who used to be a trustee here named Chris Tackett. He is a big loud mouth. You mentioned me being a mouth. He's a much bigger mouth than me, him and his wife. And they would come to school board meetings before I ever got involved and claimed that this whole group was fighting against specifically marginalized communities like LGBTQ. And that flat out is not true. So that's what he did, and it created a lot of trouble. Nationally, it put Granbury in the spotlight and things like that. Anyway, long story short, I got with the superintendent and I said, wait a minute, y'all said in the paper this was me, the paper said it, and I did not approve it, and the parents need to know the truth, and these are very explicit books, and they don't belong in the school system. So I documented as many as I could, and so did Karen. And we made it available so people could read for themselves, and we gave it to the trustees so they could see and they could make a decision. And that's where everything kind of went backwards, because they acted as though we gave them nothing. They denied the books were there in some cases. It just became a big mess, and every time I turned around, it seemed like there was something more happening that was basically a debacle and unjust, especially how they treated Karen. But at that same time, that's when the airplane was being flown too by lead administrators. So the lady who was over the libraries and her husband, they're the ones who flew in that airplane to take family vacations. He ended up leaving eventually. She's still here, and she's still saying we don't need parents involved or citizens involved in selecting materials for our libraries because we have professionals. And what I found is they have decades of people who have been present in this town, this wonderful town, that did not support community values. And how they kept doing it, I don't know. But anyway, that is what happened, and that's kind of why I'm here. It's a moral thing, and I just take it pretty much one day at a time. I'm praying, God, do you want me to do this or not do this? Help me to be led and not driven, because driven will make you crazy and tired and exhausted, and you won't get anywhere. And it looks good if you're driven, but being led is so different. And I've watched him show me things, and I'm like, okay, there's no way I should know this. I know it, so I feel responsible.
So, leaving personalities out of it, what do you think motivates people to provide reading material that's not age appropriate?
What motivates people to provide material that is not age appropriate? I think that has to just be something maybe they don't even realize they're being influenced by faulty ideas. But leading students, first of all, not to even read well in the first place is a very bad idea. And then to give them explicit materials, because what I have found is that people who get involved in that kind of thought, whether it be pornography or explicit books, things like that, I think excuse me, my experience is that their brain is sort of like scrambled. Their logic is gone. So why would they do it? I'd like to believe, I think they're listening to the wrong voice. I don't even know why they would do that, but it is being done, and it's been done all over our nation. It wasn't just here.
You think it's ignorance or apathy? Or intention?
Intention. In Granbury High School, when I was in their library serving food, after I finished serving food and had hours and hours to hang around, because I was there from 6 a.m. in the morning until about 7 at night, there were lulls, and I would just, get up and walk around. The librarian had a poster behind her chair that had her name on it, and it was kind of like a cartoon of her, like maybe an emoji or something. And it was like what?
A caricature.
A caricature, thank you. And it was like, what is Mrs. Burns reading today? And she had a book called Brazen. Now, it's not the worst book at all, but it was a book about women who changed the world, and one of them was a transgender. Well, that's not a woman. I'm sorry. Now, if you want to say transgenders who changed the world, that would be a true statement. But her concept of being brazen, it was all over. She had a clear plexiglass that was around her desk that had books in it that were sexually explicit. She had bookshelves all over the library that had explicit authors, that had books with covers on them that would make you question what's in there. One of them was called Gone, a student, a teacher, a student crossing the line. And it was about a 17-year-old young man with his 30-something-year-old teacher. And it was absolutely explicit. I picked it up, I took pictures of it, and I shared it with them. They didn't remove it. Later,
so are these books that were on the list?
Some of them were not on the list. Like that one was not on the list. It was just on her shelf, but it wasn't on the shelf like in a hidden way. So for whatever reason, they thought they could do that. And I will say in her case, the reason I say it's on purpose is because that is exactly the kind of books that she authors. So she authors them. She's a writer. And hey, if you're a librarian, what kind of books are you going to pull into your library? Books that you are interested in. So this may have been her personal interest. But recently we had a band director here who is gone now, a female, who was inappropriate with a male student. She's gone now. She's lost her. She volunteered to let go of her certificate. So that's just an interesting situation, but that was the very book that was on the shelf. And people go, oh, it wasn't ever there. Yes, actually it was. And then the constable went in later, took pictures of the same book, and it was still there months later when he did his investigation. So yes, I think it was absolutely intentional in some cases. I do know one teacher who did wonderful work, has since left this district to go to a charter school and is doing very well there. She told me, I just quit taking my kids to the library. I couldn't take them. There were no resources there that were worthy. Like there was nothing to research. So as I was going through the middle school library, I thought, wow, it's just dark in here. It's surreal. It's paranormal. It's sci-fi crazy. And that's when I first ended up documenting what was in there. And one of the trustees said, well, would you just snap photos of what if anything bothers you? So, okay, sure. So I was walking around. Finally, I go, oh man, it's the whole library practically. And then where's Ben Franklin? I was looking for that section because I attract to that. Like you have a library I saw here that's true stories and historical things. And I'm like, okay, wait, where is this stuff? It's not here. And because I had learned a lot about homeschooling, I learned about living books and inspirational books and how you don't want to give your children something, and an old term is called twaddle, which means basically stupid books. You don't want to do that. Now you can have some stupid books. I'm not saying we can't, just like we can have some candy.
But you don't educate from comic books.
You do not.
From encyclopedias.
And they absolutely have that stuff there. They have literal what they call graphic novels. Even the categories in the library are different now. There's chick lit. So if you can imagine what chick lit is, chick literature, it's super smut. And then they made a brand new category called, what's it called? It's young adult. You can go to the library here in Granbury and look at the young adult section, and I think you'll be disappointed with what you see. So yes, I do think a fair amount of it is intentional. I think a librarian would like to say, well, I just get all these books in and they just come in and I just stick them on the shelf. I'm like, well, then you have too many books if you're doing that.
Okay, so your involvement in, I think the first project or the first environment that you and I met in was the True Texas Project.
Yes.
Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
And so your involvement in that, was that before or after this journey with the library?
Okay, so my involvement with True Texas Project goes way back. A representative came and knocked on my door when I lived in Bedford. And so at that time, very small children, so I would take my children and sit in the back and listen. And I got to know Julie McCarty, who leads that organization, and one of her, well, she has one daughter and I have 5. And so one of my girls and her daughter became good friends. So we did a few things together, and to this day we're very good friends. And then I moved out to Granbury. And she asked me if I would take over the volunteer director position. And again, I told my husband, well, he had a dream. He goes, we have got to be more active. And I said, well, Julie's asking me if I would take that position. He goes, okay, do that. Okay. But before it was in Stephenville, which was too far. I'm like, okay, I don't think I can do that. It's an hour from me, an hour back. I just don't have the bandwidth for it. So when she moved it to Granbury, then she asked me again, and I said, okay, I'll do that. But that was, so yes, I was involved with True Texas. I was pictured on their website among a bunch of other people at a banquet, that kind of thing. But no strong activity until I came to Granbury and after the book situation, because it just, in fact, when it happened at first, when I was first standing there, it was such a moral dilemma. Karen and I began to get to know each other, and I'm like, I'm fasting. I mean, it was like a 10-day fast. I'm not kidding. Something serious. This is big. I felt it. I could feel it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to fast. I'm going to pray. This is really big. I just knew it was. I don't know about big, but just very, very dangerous and damaging. And it was like, wow, what's happening here? This is surreal to me, it felt. And my husband didn't even know the content of the books until he attended a conservative Republican meeting and other people came in and read the books out loud. Then he was shocked out of his mind. He was watching a movie with my children or doing other things while I was documenting books. I was like, y'all enjoy that, I'll go do this. So he knew what I was doing, but he had never read any of it. And anyway, it blew our minds, honestly. It still blows my mind, actually. So
it's amazing to me because I've seen places like the pastor who was arrested, I believe it was in the South around Atlanta, for reading a book at the school board meeting. And he was charged with indecent exposure through verbal expression or something. I mean, just something crazy like that. Lewd and lascivious language. And he's like, the point that I'm trying to make as I'm reading this book out loud to the school board is that this book is available for 5th and 6th graders. And if you need to quote my expression as an adult.
Yes.
Because it's offensive to adults, how is it not offensive to children?
Exactly.
And or risque or dangerous
Right.
or corrupting or
Right.
whatever word you want to put onto it. But it's amazing to me that in so many places there are laws against it. And
Right.
that's why I wonder, is it ignorance, is it apathy, or is it intentional? And I'm coming to the conclusion that it's all three.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There are parents who are ignorant of the fact. There are school board members, trustees who are apathetic.
Right.
They know it's there and it's not that big a deal to them.
Right.
And then there are those who are intentionally making the content available, and whatever their intention is behind that,
Right.
it's not less than nefarious.
Right.
So then the question becomes, and I can only imagine people who are watching this are thinking to themselves, what kind of, uptight individual do you have to be that concerned about what other people's kids are reading is really none of your business.
Yes.
And so if I'm asking from the standpoint of the average, the 5,000 people that might be watching,
Right.
why do you care what their children read?
Okay.
What business is it of yours?
Right. Well, first they made it my business. They asked me to be on the committee, and I said I would
Okay,
be.
but that season's over, so why now?
Yeah, okay, so because of the lies, because of making the public think it wasn't there, and continuing to support not only the explicit books, but a lot of other suggestive books that are damaging for children. Then you look at the reading scores across the nation. Okay, so why does it matter to me? Well, because I guess I've always had that kind of focus. I'm about my home, about my community, about my state, about the other states, about the United States. I'm not like, I don't need my four walls. I'm not a my four no more kind of person. I've never been that way. My stepfather was a fireman, and he instilled in me the idea. He said people will stand by and watch things happen and do nothing. And when I see the numbers of students that are in the public school system and they can't read, or they read poorly, and they're reading SpongeBob SquarePants kind of stuff, like totally frying their brain for future service and future health and wealth and life and happiness. Yeah, that would be why, because I don't think it's healthy for my own children, and I don't think it's healthy to continue to raise communities of individuals who've been done this way and have no idea they're being done that way. So I think that is exactly it, and because it was such a moral thing, I don't know, if you had read the books, I don't know that you could walk away so easily. And then then you see them treating Karen Lauber the way they treated her. And then you see, their policy says this, this, and this. They didn't even know their policy. I brought up their policy to the superintendent. He had no idea what I was talking about. I brought up policy to Leah Dawson, the lead of the libraries, and I asked her, do you know what this is? EHAA, and she said no. Honestly, she was honest. She didn't know. So when I tell them, well, here's what it is. It tells you what accredits your school, what makes it a great school. It's beautiful. Do this. Do what's written here. And make sure your resources don't go against it, which is what they've done. So I don't know if that really answered it for you. It's probably still not going to be satisfactory to people who go, why do you do that? I think I've bled red, white, and blue for a long time. I'm very patriotic. I don't watch movies like Saving Private Ryan because it would make me way more intense. So if you think I'm uptight, I don't need to. I don't want to watch, what's that movie, The Passion of Christ, because I read the scriptures. If I watch it, I think it would wreck me even more. And it does make me passionate. I do think I'm tied in a sense that I do have a relationship with God. I have read the scriptures. There's scriptures that say that you're in trouble with God if you don't speak up. And so that covers a lot of topics. And I can't shake it, but I do pray to be led and not driven. So, and I don't think they like it. Of course they don't like it.
So how do you intend to persuade the apathetic masses that your involvement is worth them getting behind, supporting, voting for, aside from, was it John Wesley? Maybe it was before John Wesley who said, I intend to set myself on fire so others can watch me burn.
Yeah, I like that. I'm sorry. I would say one thing, when I graduated, one of the quotes that was given to me was, all it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. So that one really meant a lot to me. Yeah. And scripture itself means a lot to me. And I think I've just lost the question you gave me. You gave me a very specific one. Can you tell me one more time?
So really what I'm trying to get at is...
Oh, what would make them not apathetic?
For the apathetic masses that are out there who are thinking, you want my vote, why should I give it to you?
Okay, so real brief, I do want to say this. I met a friend who has run for school board, and now she's running again in Colorado. And she was so dear and so sweet. And she said to me, she goes, I was challenged. Someone said to me, when you are not involved, you're complicit. You are part of the problem. And I was like, whoa, they said that to you? And she said, yes. She goes, I thought I was protecting my heart, which is true, and it is an important thing to protect your heart, because if this is causing you to be angry or depressed, or you can't even function because of all these problems you're looking at, then that's not good either. So because she was challenged with this idea of your complicity, you are complicit with it, then she became active, and she began to recognize things and see things that she had no idea of. So she was basically, I see, hear no evil, see no evil, because she removed herself from the environment. So that's something I don't do. I do pay attention, and I do live a balanced, I think a balanced, happy life. And to me, this is just natural. One thing Julie McCarty says is, I don't fight so my children won't have to. I fight so that my children will know how. And I think my husband and I both have come to recognize that there is a lifetime good and evil thing going on at different levels, and that if we will stand up and step up, then we can make things better on our watch and not watch it slide. Pretty much everything good that you do takes effort and work, and if you back off of it, what happens? Like if you don't put the oil in your car, you don't change the tires, it doesn't get better by itself. If you plant a garden and you don't weed it and nurture it and give it all the stuff it has to have, it's not going to be flourishing. So I think we're kind of stuck with swimming against that stream of wanting to be complacent. And I don't know exactly how to get people to not be complacent, except even the pastors, just to say, you're complicit. And now pastors have been given permission to actually speak on who they support more than ever before. So that's a good thing if they can recognize it and realize it. I think that one reason why they're not involved, and one reason I am, someone said, why are you so bold? Well, when you start looking at if you did what I did, if you read the books and you saw it, I think you would. I think it marked me, and it changed me in a way. There were citizens who would go, I'll read a book and I'll document it, and they'd go, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't. I started reading it and I just can't. It was sickening. Some of it, not all of it. Some of it was horror. There was horror mixed in with explicit. So yeah, I think that's really where I'm at on that I just have a lot of conviction in my heart about right and wrong, and about doing my part. And then even just knowing early American history, that always makes me want to, do something that would be impactful to preserve, the good things.
When I hear you talk about the complicit aspect and the do-nothing aspect of that, I'm reminded of the talents, the three different men with the three different talents, and how one, doubled it, and another one, brought back 5 against 1, so that's a pretty good ROI.
Right.
And then the one just buried it.
Right.
I'm going to protect what I have because I know you're harsh, rather than I'm going to do all I can to fight against.
Yes.
And I think have you ever looked up the definition of complacency? It's an interesting definition. Content to a fault. A lot of people say, I just want to be content. I just want to be content. And they even say that, it's godly to be content. Paul said, I've learned to be content with everything that I have.
Yes.
And so, whether you got a lot or you got nothing, to be content with that, that's an attitude arrangement.
Sure.
Right? That's choosing meekness and humility, and not striving for something that's not intended to be yours.
Right.
But I think contentment to a fault is complacency, by definition. And when you reach the place that you're okay with whatever, to the degree that it encumbers others, or as Julie said, I'm not just fighting for my children not to have to fight, but to know how.
Right.
I think we've lost that. And I think the evidence is abundant when we see things like the young lady just in the last couple of days stabbed to death on the train. 14 different criminal violations by the same guy did not land him in prison.
Right.
Now there's a little bit of press and media attention on it. But at the same week that was released, there was a media release that made every major headline and every major news outlet about some guy who apparently made a comment online that he might threaten to hurt children of color. He didn't actually hurt anybody. He hadn't actually done anything yet, but he was arrested because of the comments that he made on social media, which is happening all over the UK right now. And if you speak against specific religions, then you can be incarcerated or executed.
Right.
And ironically, in the US, with the predominant faith still being Christianity, if you speak out about your faith, it's not just flashing the headlights at the oncoming car, it's all-out war.
Right.
Which is really fascinating to me.
Well,
it's
and
the burying of the talent.
Yes. I'll say about myself too, there are a few people, Karen Lowry was one of them, and myself, we recognized, oh, they can't fire me. They can't, there's only so much they can do to me, and it's mostly words. So I have watched other people literally just come to a school board meeting and just speak, and oh my goodness, now they don't have their job anymore. Or they got a phone call from someone who said, you need to be less political. And now they cannot get a job here in where they could before in our county. So there is a cost to speaking up, and when you recognize that you might be someone who can speak and they can't take you down, that is a very big responsibility, I believe. And I think it's, oh, whoa, okay. So if I can do it, then I will do it. Specifically because they cannot harm me in the ways they've harmed others.
Well, in the worldly sense of that, both Joe Rogan and who's the comedian, loudmouth, African-American guy, I'll think of his name in a minute.
It's not Michael. Is his name Michael?
No.
Okay.
It's
different
guy. I'll think of his name in a minute. But Joe Rogan made the comment after he contracted the virus and took specific medicines to cure it. The same stuff that Donald Trump took. Joe Rogan was on the air and they tried to cancel him. They're like, he's taking horse dewormer and he's taking this and it's a bunch of whatever. Well, it was the attack mob, the hecklers veto coming after Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan said, you don't understand this. I have a contract with no one. And even Spotify's like, we'll cancel your contract if you don't stop talking about this stuff. He said, go ahead.
Right.
I mean, I don't care if you go out of business. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We're going to cancel you. He said, yeah. And I'm the largest voice on your platform right now. Cancel me and you'll go out of business. And he said to somebody, I don't remember who it was, he said, what is the value of having FU money if you never say FU? And so from the secular standpoint, the bold, brazen, I'm going to speak even when you tell me to shut up.
Right.
In fact, when you tell me to shut up, I'm going to speak louder.
Right.
There are only so many people, A, with the courage, and B, with the capacity to do that.
Right.
Because we've seen CEOs, lose their jobs, lose their careers, become unhirable because of their faith. We saw what happened with Mike Flynn. And General Mike Flynn had everything in his resume to say there's nothing questionable about his background, about his integrity, about his past. But there was one issue he refused to stop talking about. And they threatened to imprison his son in order to shut him up.
Right.
Now, he's since talked about all that on the Patriot David broadcast and others, but the willingness to speak the truth in the face of ignorance, apathy, and intent, it does come with a high cost.
It does. And I do try to tell people, look, do what you can. Like, I've got elderly friends, not so much elderly, but they're older, and I'll say, they say, I want to do more. And I'm like, hey, you're praying, you keep doing that. You send me a word of encouragement from time to time, it means the world to me. But don't feel driven that you have to do what I'm doing, or that you're not doing something because I'm like you, what you're doing. You may say it has nothing to do with politics, and it doesn't, but yet, every time you do something good and you promote goodness and good things and good endeavors, that is the pushback. A friend of mine lost her job here as a substitute teacher. Now she's teaching 5 days a week in a local private school, loving it, has a free voice, and feeling like, okay, I'm impacting. Now, does she go to school board meetings anymore? She's in her 70s. Driving at night is something she doesn't really want to do. And her energy is being spent during the day. And I said, don't ever think that you aren't doing something super important by what you're doing, right? So she doesn't need to go to the school board meeting and talk. Now, sometimes she'll share ideas with me from what she thinks as a teacher, because she was a former school teacher for many years and then a substitute here in Granbury. And then when she chose to speak up and encourage them to go for the values, to raise reading scores and to get the explicit books out and that kind of thing. Next thing you know, she was fired, and one of her family members. Oh, I know.
Radical values.
It's like so it's contrary to original thought for sure. And it just doesn't even make sense. It's difficult because it doesn't make sense. And then they don't mind just pulling something out of the air and claiming something that is 100% not true just to get a story going. And that's been very interesting, to watch. That kind of, even now we have, when you sign up to go for school board, you can fill out a code of conduct form. And it talks about running a nice campaign. Already, the people who are opposing me and the other two that are conservative, they've already taken domain names with our names on it. They've already put trash out there. They've been very unkind. And our sitting Barbara Townsend, who was the president, now she's not the president of the board, but she's been there for more than a decade, says and does nothing about it. But when I sign that code of conduct, I will do something about it. If any of my people who are helping me do those kinds of things, it's my responsibility to say, hey, don't do that. Talk about the record, talk about the voting, talk about what you want to see happen, but don't go making up things about people or doing things to defame them or to disparage them in a way to pull them down in the mudslinging fashion.
Right.
But we definitely have that going on already with the other people. So it's just already here. In Hood County, can be vicious.
I think there were two statements in Scripture that you really got to know what it says to get the deepest value out of them. One of them was, before Moses was, I am. That's a power, before Abraham was, I am. That was a powerful, not only a cognitive attack to a timeline, but it was a statement that was the exclamation mark on a declaration when he said, you are liars because you are children of the father of lies.
Right.
Your father is a liar. You can't do anything different. That's a big indictment.
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge indictment. The other was when he stood before Pontius Pilate and said, do your worst, but you have no authority except what my Father has given you.
Right.
Again, that was what's the point of having FU money if you don't ever say FU?
Right.
That was kind of the bring it on kind of a moment. And I think there are a lot of people, and I honestly have to say I put myself in this category, who feel like there's more to lose than there is to gain. At the same time, I know that both in my intellect and in my spirit, I keep hearing the quote from the Lion Roadhouse, be nice until it's time to not be nice. And I'll tell you when that is. The challenge for a lot of people is while they're being nice, they get soft.
Right.
And I think the downtime is the time to train.
The downtime is the time to train.
So that means keep reading the books. I've been studying Ed Silvoso and Andy Ngo at the same time.
Okay.
Ed Silvoso talks about how to rebuild a society that's already collapsed under corruption.
Okay.
Andy Ngo talks about, from its origins, what Antifa looks like, where it came from, and how it was built under Stalinism.
Okay.
And so how it was built then versus how it worked in Portland in 2020, 2022, how it's working right now in 2025 in various places, how Antifa has morphed itself, has adopted causes, has been adopted by other causes to hybrid itself and hide in places in plain sight.
Right.
And still do the damage to
Yes.
society and culture. And it has one goal, and that is the demise of the West. And I believe the intention of the demise of the West is to destroy the faith and to separate people from family, because family leads to faith, and
Right.
faith leads to freedom.
Right.
And so if we can destroy the family, they'll never have their faith, and they'll never find the freedom
Right.
in Christ or the freedom in society.
Right.
So I believe there's a driven agenda that's over 150 years old,
Oh yeah.
that has been executed at many different levels. And so the ignorant, unaware, unlearned,
Right.
couldn't care less, they got better things to do, apathetic, and the intentional override
Right.
the apathetic and the ignorant.
Right. Right.
So how do you see yourself making a difference from the vantage point that you have? And let me ask that question on both sides. If you actually are seated with the school board or you're not? What's the difference?
Well, either way, I mean, I'm not going to, like you said, I think you used the word loudmouth or something like that. So as long as I feel led to speak, I'm going to speak and shed light. So I think shedding light is a part of the process. I do think we're in a relay race until we leave, and we need to be thinking about passing the baton to someone else. So even talking to you today and going forward, I would like to educate people on what I've learned. Just even using my own camera at school board meetings has been a very big impact already to document what's been going on. What would I do? I would do things like bring back those inspirational biographies and stories of early Americans, people from around the world. To me, the school has said, oh, we need social emotional learning. Well, you took it out. When you didn't let a student read all about Ben Franklin or Ben Carson or Frederick Douglass or Sergeant York, if you didn't do that, they will learn resilience right there. That isn't scripture. Now, if you have scripture, that's even better. And in their policy, it says, EHAA says we will teach the Old and New Testament and its impact on history. Now they ignore it, or they'll say, well, we'll offer it, but if nobody takes it. Well, actually, you have a free door to teach that without taking them to an altar. This isn't talking about passing on religion, but it is the oldest classical book in the world, which would be the Bible. Books like Pilgrim's Progress, very old, very classical book, and what it does for the brain. So what I'd like to do is not take another book out, unless it's just falling apart and someone wants to get rid of it, but go in and put back in and add in the good books and the interesting books and the inspiring books, even if it's contrary to what I think. If it just shows the human capacity to overcome a difficult situation, I think those books should be in there. And if we do that, if we inspire students toward excellence, toward learning, go back and talk to them about American exceptionalism, what made our country great, and go back and do that and make sure they know it, instead of going, well, you're on devices, and well, you already see porn anyway, so it doesn't matter if we give it to you too, and you're just a kid, you would never want this. Well, that isn't true. I really don't believe that about humans, especially when you take a little baby and they come to you, and by the time they're 3, they're so brilliant, they can talk, and I mean, they can really converse with you by the time they're 3 or 4 years old if they've hung around people who talk to them, right? And if they've been given a few resources, it's amazing. By the time they're in 5th grade, we've lost all the sparkle. Why do we do that? What do we do to them? I've always been amazed, like, what happened here to get to here? Now, sometimes it's personal choices, right? Or it's things that got into damage that happens to them along the way. But anyway, so there's things like that I'd like to do. I'd like to get the accountability factor up a whole nother notch, which would mean all these contracts that are hidden, to get those out for the public to see. I'd like our appraisal district board, the trustees actually vote on who gets to be on that board. So I would like to obviously get people who will be conservative, and I know people in other communities who have straightened out their appraisal district to the tune of bringing a lot of comfort to people. Like when you don't have to have your house reappraised every so often, if you can stretch it out a little bit, that's a relief, instead of wondering every year what's going to happen. And then even the school, I've been advocating for something called a no new revenue tax rate, or even lower. If they will do that, it will also bring relief. Our commissioners did it for the first time this year. Our trustees got close to it, but not quite. So they're making some progress, but they need to keep going that direction. Otherwise, a lot of these communities, what they're doing, they're building all these schools on bonds, putting the children and grandchildren into debt into the future. And then what happens? The young people can't even afford to live in the community. So then you have schools all over north central Texas that are shuttering, they call it, which means they're shutting them down. Closed. Buildings with no children in them. And the birth rate's changing too. So I would pay attention to things like that before throwing another bond out to this community. The last 3 failed because the community could not see the logic. And there was a lot of faulty logic. There was even misinformation on student numbers and things like that. So I would definitely want to uphold those kinds of things and then pass that baton on to the next person who takes that position to think along those lines, if at all possible, if they would. But I do know, like the story in the Bible about Nehemiah, you know, he heard things weren't going so well, and he had a sad face, right? And the king says, what's the matter with you? You're always happy. And he goes, well, I've learned that these walls are breaking down. So then the king says, you know what, you go take care of it. So he did, but the whole time there was all this talking going on, all this writing letters and making fun and, oh, you're stupid and stuff like that. But he carried on. He goes, I'm going to keep doing what I've been called to do, and he did it. But if you get to the very end of the book, after it's completed, he hears again they're trying to break the wall down. And that's the point, I think, when we say we're teaching our children how to fight, so they know, don't ever let this go down. I think we thought that because our people fought for good things, that it would just carry on, instead of recognizing that we have to notice what's happening. And the whole reading phenomena in our country, if they can't read, how are they ever going to think like you? How are they ever going to be able to read the books you just mentioned, have the capacity for it? So this whole thing, it was a low blow to take reading skills away from our children. To, like in Granbury, the math skills are not where they need to be. I know there's some efforts to try to fix that right now, but it is nowhere near it needs to be. And the same for
who
reading.
needs to read? You've got AI.
Right. Okay. Oh, hey, let's just get rid of libraries, is what people have
You
said.
just ask the question and it'll answer it. I
Right.
remember I mentored for about 10 years in a high school, in a public high school.
Okay.
I remember one of the years I was asked to do kind of the launch, and they used the curriculum that I had written. And I said, I want you to understand as mentors, and we had about 300 mentors and teachers that ran this project under Dr. Becky Ewart. It was her doctoral thesis to bring community leaders and people who ran businesses into the school to spend time with the kids, so they're not just hearing from the teachers in the textbook.
Right.
And so this whole program was volunteer and teacher hybrid.
Yes.
And so when I spoke to the volunteers, I said, I just need you to understand, you are recognized by the teachers and by the staff, the faculty of the school, as someone who has a lot to contribute because of your knowledge and your experience.
Right.
But I need you to understand that while that's true, even if you hold a PhD or 2 or 3 or 5, these kids have a device in their pocket that can access every answer you've ever read, thought, or pondered
Right.
in seconds.
Right.
And this was before AI.
Right.
Today, and here's what I know to be a fact. I asked a question today. I was working with a coaching client. They mentioned a particular seed. When they mentioned the seed by name, I was like, I've never heard of that. I looked it up to figure out what it was.
Sure.
The algorithm in my Google search, answered first with AI before it gave any other answers.
Right.
And the AI answer, because it knows me because of my algorithm and my searches, the first 3 answers were all straight from the Bible.
Interesting.
And I thought, I wonder how many other people would search exactly the same thing and get an AI answer
Right.
of Scripture.
Right.
I don't know the answer to that question, but that's pretty fascinating.
Yes.
But I do know that there are times, and I've heard other radio talk show hosts talk about, they'll search something on Monday and then search it again on Wednesday and then search it again on Friday and then search it again 90 days later. And not only do they get a different answer, but some of the answers that were in the top 5 on Monday, on Wednesday are not even in the top 5.
Right.
And by Friday can't be found even if you know to search for them. And 90 days later cannot be found at all.
Right.
And what they're finding is that AI is not just filtering the best to the top.
Right.
It's filtering to the top what it wants you to know and eliminating all other answers.
Right.
That's a scary idea. I had a conversation with a guy, been a few years now, but we were on the phone and he threw out a quote to me. He said, you realize what you're talking about is very dangerous for our democracy. And I said, we don't live in one. Now, this guy was a political consultant. He was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year traveling around the country being involved in politics.
Right.
And he said, of course we do. I said, no, we don't. Just look it up.
Right.
And I could tell while we were talking, he's looking up democracy on his phone and he's trying to read the definition back to me. So he did. He read it back to me and I said, that's awesome. Hang tight for 1 second. I was standing next to the bookshelf and I pulled off my 2005 lexicon dictionary, Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. I pulled it off and I read the definition. And he's like, well, that's not the same thing. And I said, the word is democracy. That's the definition as it was offered to college students in 2005. And he's like, well, that's different. I said, no, that's not different. Here's different. So I pulled out the 1968 definition of Webster's Dictionary.
Right.
I have that one on my shelf too.
Yes.
I read that out to him.
Right.
He said, those are like 2 totally different things.
Right.
I said, yeah, how far do you want me to go back? Because I've got a 1929 Webster's Dictionary as well. So I read that to him and he's like, it's like this word has changed its meaning. I said, no, people with a nefarious intent have changed the meaning of the word.
That's right.
To fit their own agenda.
Right.
And when you don't realize that because you don't know to read the older text,
Right.
I've got encyclopedias that go back to 1968 that talk about things that today you cannot find in a Google search.
Right. Yes.
Knowledge has intentionally been hidden.
Yes, agree.
Do you know that goes all the way back to Jesus and the woman at the well? When she asked the question, should we worship at the well or should we worship on the mountain? And he said, woman, you're ignorant. And the deeper meaning of that phrase was, knowledge has been hidden from you on purpose.
Right, right.
And that's where we find ourselves
Yes,
today.
yes.
When young people act out violently, when young people don't understand their social responsibilities, started with pennies in his pocket, working a minimum wage job, now is a multi-billionaire, Patrick Bet-David. Sat down with 100 plus young people on Jubilee to talk about the merits of capitalism versus socialism.
Okay.
And to hear them quote the same thing, person after person after person after person, with no evidence to back it up.
Right.
With not even an anecdote to go, here's how I know this to be true.
Right.
All they can do is spout exactly the same lines, and he's given them, 2 of them he offered a job on the spot. Both of them had excuses. One, he offered to pay for her medical care. And she's like, well, your offer is not good enough. He's like, what do you got right now? But their mindset is, I've got this all figured out. I've already been told what the truth is. I don't need to look at it again. It's apathy and ignorance woven together, and the person with the intent is driving that knowledge into their lives to make the decisions for them.
Yes.
How do you combat that from the school board?
So from the school board, I think, first of all, you just be a truth speaker, and you just be transparent, and you show the contracts, or you look at the resources. I mean, it's just not that difficult. You walk in a classroom and a chair's broken, we have no trouble taking the chair out. If you go to the football field and the ball is not in, what do you call it when it's league, or it's the actual detailed, has to be the specific kind of ball. Like you can't throw a basketball.
It's gotta be official.
Okay, so you have to have officials. We all know how to identify things, and so and they are professionals, and they do have bachelor's and master's degrees, and they were taught to. They have policy to even follow. So I think the first thing is just to pull out the policy. Pull out the student conduct code and see, are we following this? Trustees, are we following our codes? Are we watching this in every school district in Texas? You can look at their website if they have one, and you can go to the school board, you can go to policy, and you can start reading what it is that they said they agreed to. You can see legal requirements, and then if you click, you can see local, what your local people say about that. So I think that's a great place to start, and just try to say, does it all match up? Because nobody would go out there and throw the wrong size football and try to win a game, or throw in a different ball that doesn't belong there. It's actually, we're acting like we don't know or we can't see, and that's just not true. So I think speaking about it is one thing, and then following other districts that are actually doing the work. So like there's a district in Texas that broke away from TASB, Texas Association of School Boards. Well, that's been a monopoly for a long time. I'm sure it was good in the beginning, but it's been overbearing and controlling. We have an accounting firm we've used for more than 2 decades. Well, there are leaders in this town who think that's not the way you should do it. You should change it up. Otherwise, what happens? You get apathetic. You get shady. I mean, that's what happens. The same thing with the law firms.
When you become apathetic, corruption is just right around the corner.
Hey, I mean,
that's not an accusation, it's just a reality.
We have administrators making more at Granbury Independent School District, which is relatively small compared to a lot, than our governor of the state of Texas. So right there, I mean, I know that no one wants to hear that, but that actually isn't the way to go about doing things. And it doesn't take that much money to get someone to be in a leadership position with heart for students. So those are the kind of things.
Especially when you got leaky roofs and broken chairs.
Oh yeah, leaky roofs. How do you sleep at night taking that check when you know it's leaking over there? Or how do you do that? I don't know. And the teachers, I think, did get apathetic, because not really so much. One of the teachers I know, and the teachers I've dealt with in my other side of my life, is they get so focused on their classroom and what they're teaching, they have no idea what the policy says. Well, and you have to, because you got 20 kids and 20 new ones, or some of these teachers have 20 every hour, 20 different kids every hour. Like, God bless that. Obviously, if you're an English teacher, you're probably grading a lot of papers at night. If you're a band director, maybe it's a little bit different, and your schedule's different. And if you're a librarian, and you actually, in some states, you don't get to be a full-time librarian, but here we've got full-time librarians who still don't have time to pay attention to what's in there. That's just all questionable to me. So I think we need to ask questions. We need to be kind. We need to figure out really what the teachers would like to say, because here they do know they will lose their job. There's even pressure to make sure you voted, and they can check it. There's a lot of pressure.
What you voted?
Well, in Granbury, when it has to do with certain things, it's nonpartisan, so it'll be Republican. It'll show you did it. You voted Republican. But it won't show, I don't think it shows who you voted for. It just confirms you did. So if you're a very controlling superintendent, and I'm not saying that about the one we have now, but they will double check those numbers. And I'm sorry to say, but even the people they're using to promote these other candidates, one of them was censored by the Republican Party for horrible behavior, was very horrid to me, and horrid to me in front of my children, telling them I was going to burn in hell, stuff like that, which of course we don't worry, it rolls off our back because we know that's not true. anyway, our establishment mentality here in Granbury on the school board and across the state of Texas in a lot of districts is like that. It's unbelievably ugly and immature, and it does not follow their code. They have a code of conduct for trustees. They have a code of conduct for students and staff and teachers. So I think we just need to keep doing what Trump said, which was law and order. Bring things back in order. The more order, the better. And you've heard of DEI. Some people like to think of that as didn't earn it. Now, I know we need diversity. I know we need equitable situations. I know we need to include people. So I'm not against the idea of variety and
I got no problem with DEI if we use the words according to their definitions and meanings.
Right. And I like to quote Ben Carson. I don't have this quote in my head right now, but Ben Carson was one who said, basically merit-based and achievement. And he's the one who looked around and said, wait, why do we have so many glass cases full of basketball trophies and football trophies? No harm to any of that. That's all praiseworthy. But why don't we have these? Why are we not praising the academic skills? So he has gone around the country offering awards to students for being studious, not just being athletics. I think we definitely need to bridge that gap and make sure that we're rewarding the students who are not involved in those other programs, who are studying, or maybe they're in both, but definitely paying attention to the reading and math scores and critical thinking. So as a person on the school board, I would also very much support the other two candidates that are running, because if those two get there, along with one who's already leaning conservative on that board, we would literally have it flipped to the conservative. And what would that mean? Well, that would mean transparency for real. That would mean accountability for real. That would mean some contracts wouldn't be renewed, most likely, of people who've been nefarious and who have caused trouble and who aren't doing their job well. And that would for sure mean if a band director's inappropriate with a student, that they would leave. I mean, that happened here too. Our trustees did take care of that. But that is the kind of thing you would get. One of the candidates has been involved in Granbury ISD since she was a child, her and her husband. So she's bleeding purple big time in a good way. And she's raised her 4 children in the district. And she has been a volunteer for literally 22 years. So she's very intimately involved in ideas of what would make things better. And the other candidate besides me, we're all running independent of each other, but we're all independent thinkers. He's a 24-year Air Force veteran. And he has been block walking, meeting people door to door for conservative values for years. He travels to Austin. He stood up for making sure girls are safe and they don't have boys in their bathrooms or boys in their sports. He went to Austin and testified. So that is the kind of person he is. He's not afraid. He said, I'm not going to let just the women fight. That's what he said. So those are the kind of people. But you get that kind of unity going and that kind of mindset, I think you would see things like, okay, just a week ago, 2 conservatives on the board right now, they brought up that maybe we should get a different quote on our insurance for our district. Well, the insurance they've been using for 6 years. The newer company came in with a almost $300,000 lower bid, lower deductibles, higher coverage, better coverage, and the board voted for the previous one. Now, thankfully, because of the competition, they lowered their money, so we saved about $250,000 a year right there. But they wouldn't go with the new company. They just can't make themselves do it. But still, what would you do? What would I do with $250,000 saved over 6 years? Well, I think I'd look at teachers and go, who's excelling here? Who's doing a really good job? Who can you walk in their classroom and see that they've got it going on? And the students are excelling. What if you gave them $1,000? What if they didn't sell the Decker gym to Hood County United Way or give it to them? Instead, they sold it for some kind of market value, even if it was $1 million, if that's all they got for it. What would that do for teachers or facilities or for the leaking that's going on in some of the buildings or the air conditioner that's broken in the cafeteria, whatever it is, instead of saying we have to have a bond to fix that. So those are the kind of things I would like to look at. I would really like to look at, and I know that David Rogers would too, and Jessica Warwick, they'd like to look at the contracts that we have and go, can we get a better legal firm? Can we get a different accounting firm? Can we get better bids on a lot of things and see if we could save, what if we could save a couple million a year? Wouldn't that be something? And then we could turn it, because it's already in the budget, turn some of that toward the teachers, because they're making about an average of $66,000 a year, and yet these administrators are all scaring. They're at either $98,000 or up to, I think, $150,000. I think the superintendent's around $250,000. Wow. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Well, I think that's an issue nationwide.
Yes.
There are administrators making more than the people in the classroom doing the day-to-day harder work, in my opinion.
Yes.
And there are
definitely harder
administrators that are making more money than anybody but professional athletes. But that, my mother's was a retired teacher.
Yes.
She passed a couple of years ago. But as a teacher, she started as a janitor and worked her way up from janitor all the way to teacher. Got her degree at 50 years old.
Wow.
And then worked in the Challenger High School where the misfits and the misbehaving existed, and saw them go on to scholarships and all that kind of stuff. She helped them rewrite the stories of their life, which is what I do now, is help people rewrite the stories.
That's so good.
So even then, though, she retired on a pension that wasn't enough to live on.
Right.
She lost her medical benefits after a period of time because somebody decided to rewrite the policies.
Right.
Meanwhile, I've got a cousin who went into the field and said, I will never be a teacher in the classroom because that's just a broke decision. And
right, thinking of their own family and their own
went
household.
straight into by 30 had a PhD, and walked right into the administrative realm, making six figures.
Right.
And I'm thinking, you watched your aunt do 20 years of hard time, if you will, as a teacher in the classroom.
Yes.
And making a tenth of that.
Right.
And
that's unjust.
And you're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm not okay with that. I'm really not.
At some point, somebody's got to step back and go, it's just not right.
Right.
But why do we continue to do it? Why do we promote it?
Right. I'll say, two other things I'd like to do. One is a policy called no pass, no pass. Not no pass, no play, but no pass, no pass. That's worked in districts where you have impoverished students who cannot pass. You get with grandmas and mothers and the community and say, look, you teach them now, we help you, or you will be in the unemployment line with them when they're older. So when this was implemented in another place in South Texas, the administrator was, a superintendent, she was saying, I implemented no pass, no pass. Not no pass, no play. So it is bad when you have to sit on the bench and you don't get to play. That is a good incentive. But if you don't pass, you don't pass. Even if you're a big boy, you've got to come back and get this stuff mastered. Get those foundational things. So that was one thing. And then other districts that have people who are speaking other languages and not English, they make English a priority. They make it a priority in a big way. They tutor after school, a couple days a week, and on weekends. Now, I know some of that's going on here, and all I'm saying is let's keep doing that. Let's, as a community, let's start talking, let's start passing around good books, because right now, I can't hand a good book to the administrators. They say we won't, and we can't. And if it's not, I have two books from First Liberty. One is called Founded on Freedom, and one is called No Better Letter. It's about the Danbury letter. Beautiful books. Brand new books that I tried to give to them, and they said, well, we can't because of HB 900. Well, that's the sexually explicit bill book thing. It had nothing to do with these books. Well, if it doesn't have a peer review, we can't do it. If it doesn't have the major names, well, no, actually your own policy says that you're a professional. You can assess it and you can decide. These are crazy, amazing, good books for children, but they didn't want to take it. And that's what we have. So as a community, I think we also have to make it important and fun. You've heard that Make America Great kind of thing, Make America Healthy again. Well, make Granbury academically excellent, like excellent. Why not? Other districts are doing it. And I'll say one more thing. I'm on a rant right now, but like people go, well, how come TEA just gave us an A+ for finances or an A? Well, we did. Our books all match, but that doesn't even include overbuying insurance. That doesn't include how many times are you going to do an assessment and pay someone to assess all the problems for bonds, literally to the tune of $90,000 plus to get that report in. How many times are you going to do that and then still not repair the things? So you can get an A because you crossed some T's and you dotted some I's, but could you get right down to the real deal? And could you get the job done? And in some districts, they're doing that. And that's the kind of mentality I would like to take in there, because I certainly would not want to go in there and just hang around and do what's been done in the past and get nowhere. I wouldn't want to do that. Anyway, it gets me kind of upset a little bit. Yeah.
You're passionate about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Looks like we have about 3 minutes left, so okay. I want to make sure that we wrap up before we lose our recording on our live stream.
Okay.
Anything that I haven't asked that you feel is important for people to know?
No, I think just emphasizing who I am. We did that today. David Rogers is an outstanding independent thinker. I think he would be amazing on the school board. And Jessica Wark, she ran for school board before, but she is a parent. They called her just a parent. Very powerful, very bright, very smart, has the right heart for our district, and I think people should vote for her and go against the other people because they are establishment mindset. They've already been extremely ugly in mudslinging, And our sweet Barbara Townsend, who is a good volunteer in our town and has been there a long time, she's been there more than a decade, I do think she needs to step aside and let David take that position and let him demonstrate what he can do and what he would stand for, and let her see what that would look like. I think it's time. So that would be my main emphasis, is on who we are as a individual people. We have a lot of harmony between the three of us, and I think we could make some big things happen here in Granbury.
What kind of harmony do you have with the people sitting already?
The ones that are sitting already, well, one of them is very fiscally responsible, and I think that goes with all three of us as well. I think some of the moral responsibility parts are not as in sync with some of the sitting trustees. So there are several of them there that we probably would not have as much harmony with, probably wouldn't, and we'd be voting down. We would be voting them down instead of them voting us down. Right now, it's been on their side of things, and I think if we can get these three people in, plus the one we already have, that would give us the majority, which would allow us to do things. They even shut down trustees being able to put something on the agenda, and that would be over if the three of us got in there.
Put on your master's in social worker hat for a moment.
Okay.
And tell me how your education and your experience as a mother of 9 causes you to look at the school board through a different lens.
Okay, well, social work, I always think of empathy, trying to have empathy and understanding kind of where someone's perspective is coming from, and it's fun. You need sympathy and empathy. The mama side is there's always two sides to every story, and I think there needs to be a lot of repetition. You know, you've mentioned scripture a lot today, but the Egyptian story is there a lot about getting out of the bondage into the light. And I know the Chick-fil-A owner here in town, he does the same thing. He's constantly repeating to his people, and that's why they say, "It's my pleasure," when they serve you. And if he doesn't, they stop saying it. So I think the idea of coaching and empowering and encouraging and expecting leadership and independent behavior and critical thinking and all those things, definitely, I mean, I believe that's very important. And I think that's the kind of mindset that needs to happen in the district, is we dust off the policies, talk about them, make sure everyone knows what they are, and just keep encouraging that we comply with it, and yet with empathy and sympathy, you know, understanding. So that would be the social work angle on that. Yeah.
Very good. I appreciate your time today, Monica.
Thank you.
Thanks for
I
stopping
appreciate
by.
you too. Thanks a lot.
And if you've been watching this and you're wondering, what does all that have to do with me and my faith and Storypower? Listen, the story that you tell when you look in the mirror is going to change the who that you are. The story that you tell around the dining room table is going to change the who that your children are. And the story you tell in the community is going to impact the community around you and transform potentially who they are. And when you stop telling the story, there's nothing to do that work except the story. And you've heard Monica's story. And I invite any of you who are running for office, come sit right here. Let's have a conversation about who you are, about the story that you tell, about why you want to do what you want to do. All I ask is that you be honest and transparent. I don't care what your views are. Put them out there on the table and let the people vote on that. Totally okay with that. I'm not a 501c3. So I'm here to tell the truth, and I'm here to have the conversation, and not to make it about personalities, but to make it about you. You're the one running for office. You should be willing to stand up. And if you're not running for office and you're asking, what's my role now? Well, pray. That's a really good place to start. It should be the first thing. And then while you're praying, ask him, do you love me? You might be surprised that you get an answer. And you might be surprised with the answer that you get. But he promises to answer. And that's not my promise, that's his promise. Seek me, you'll find me. Knock, seek, ask. And if anybody lacks wisdom, just ask. I'll give it to him abundantly. That's not on me, that's on him. He will deliver, though. That's a promise. I'm Loren Norris for Storypower TV, and tell it like it is. Have a blessed day.
Taking Jay Loren's Storypower Masterclass. It was amazing. I took away so much information. One of the things that I really enjoyed being formally trained in media many, many years ago is the call to action. I will use that with every speaking engagement, and I'm so grateful that Loren just spoke truth into his teachings, and he is a true professional. And I know this might sound weird, but I've been taking certifications in different classes over the years, and Loren is not boring. I can't even believe I got here at 9, and then the class went by so fast that I was like, it's time to go already? And I was shocked that it was time to go already. So it's an awesome class. You're going to enjoy it.
Because every one of you individually is a weapon. And our job equipping the saints, what God has called Summer to do, is to prepare you to go out there like a laser